Just going to look at another game I played on the ladder recently. This one's a Zerg versus Zerg. I've been going hatchery first recently in this matchup because I haven't run into as much aggressive strategies. So my opponents have been going hatchery first, and I haven't been feeling like playing the Ling Wars, the Ling Bane micro stuff as much. So instead, I try to go for an early hatchery. If my opponent doesn't punish that, I only make a few Zerglings just to keep some pressure up on the map to see what is going on out there. And then if that works out, I can expand behind it. I can get a Roach Warren and go to make a whole bunch of Roaches with their attack upgrades and hopefully use those to go across the map and win. There's other transitions after that, but the main thing I'm trying to do is win either +1 or +2 attack. My opponent does come down here and block my hatchery for a minute with their drone. It's annoying, but it's not the biggest of deals. Especially since they don't attack back. They don't really seem to be microing. It looks like they just queued it to walk around in a circle. So I take it out. My hatchery ends up being a few seconds later. It's okay. You can see if we look at the everyone cam here that my opponent has also made their hatchery before their building. I did choose to make my spawning pool before my gas here because I need to make Zerglings a little bit earlier just in case they were doing some sort of all-in. My Overlord has not yet made it across the map, so I don't know what is going on yet. You always send, as always, your first Overlord to your opponent's natural base, and then your second Overlord someplace it can watch an attack path and also a third base. So on that map that's up here in this area and over here in this area, you can see the two main attack paths that they can leave with ground units from, and you can see if they're taking a third base at either of those locations. So here I just make sure I don't get stuff fly blocked. I do make a Baneling Nest even before I start Zerg speed here, because again, if my opponent is doing something where they make early Zerglings, I want to have good defense for that. I'm playing an economic game, but still trying to stay safe against things like that aren't super early aggression, but maybe where they've made a bunch of Zerglings with a quick Zergling speed and they pull them here and come in. I want to be safe against that. I understand that this build is not going to be good if they are doing the very aggressive pull firsts, like before even making an Overlord sort of pull. But that's been so rare recently that I don't really concern myself with it. So I've got some of my first Zerglings here and here, just to make sure that, again, don't die. And then after that, try to just make drones so that I can transition to the next phase of the game with Roaches. My opponent's doing something similar over there. They have kind of a large number of Zerglings. Their Baneling Nest isn't done yet. This is, what, around 14 Zerglings? 11 plus the one chasing would be 12. So that's 6 sets of Zerglings. They saw my Zerglings, so they end up making some defense at the front of their base, which means they also want to play a longer game. You don't build a spine crawler if you're planning to go attack with your Zerglings. You do that if you're going to stay at home. My Zerglings have just stayed at home so far because my speed isn't done yet. But I do send some of the Banelings across the map just to see what's going on in my opponent's base. I get over here, I see, okay, they're building defensive structures, evolution chamber. I try to get on top of any drones that I'm able to. I think I kind of whiff it. I get like maybe one drone and reduce a whole bunch to only a couple hit points there. You have to blow up 2 Banelings on each drone to actually reduce their hit points to 0. So my opponent does send their Banelings out to counter some of my Zerglings, but I have seen, okay, they're playing defensively. I don't need to do anything especially except contain them on the 2 bases. So I just stand my army here for the moment. I do think I end up sending these Banelings in when I could have just left them, continued to let them stand out here. Just try to get an idea of if there's more Zerglings coming. It doesn't really look like it. It's just some queens now. Go closer. I said, okay, yeah, that's definitely a wall. Not going to continue with this pressure. But I want my Zerglings to still be somewhere up forward on the map. So I just keep making drones to saturate up the bases. Get a Roach War in here. and an evolution chamber to get the attack upgrade on the Roaches. The attack upgrade, the first attack upgrade on a Roach makes it so that Zerglings take fewer hits before they die. The second upgrade matters for Roach versus Roach. The first upgrade also matters for Roach versus Roach. It makes it take fewer hits in Roach fights. The second one only specifically matters against other Roaches, and it also matters when they get +1 armor. You need to get the second attack upgrade there to negate their first armor upgrade. So I've decided it's okay to take a third base here because my opponent was just doing something. I see they got +1 attack. I didn't know in game what they were getting. I only knew that they had an evolution chamber that was going to research something. So I start up ranged attack for my Roaches. Start up the... No, it's my opponent with the Carapace upgrade for the Mutalisks. Carapace makes the Overlords faster. You want that if you're making Mutalisks so that they can keep up. The Overlord or the Overseer can keep up with the Mutalisks and spot hidden units. So my opponent made a layer, I made a layer. We're both just trying to go to the next phase of the game. My plan is to make a bunch of Roaches and go attack them. I need to, once the layer's finished, immediately get the Roach speed upgrade so that they can actually move out on the map effectively. See right there, it started up. My opponent made some Spore Crawlers, just blindly in case I was making Mutalisks, I guess, since they haven't actually come over here and seen what's going on in my main base. This is a lot of defensive structures, which could have been more workers or more fighting units instead. It's kind of... You don't want to build a large number of defensive structures early because you are wrecking your economy and not making fighting units that can actually go and do damage to your opponent. So my opponent here does start the Spire, which takes a long time to build, and that costs a lot of gas to get Mutalisks. It's actually kind of hard to just transition immediately to the Spire in this matchup. You normally have to make some Roaches first to be safe, because if your opponent makes Roaches and comes and does a timing attack against you, they're going to destroy a lot of your tech. And while your Mutalisks are dealing with their army, they will have time behind it to get up proper defenses for Mutalisks, get up a Hydralisk den, start making Hydralisks, and then be completely safe against your Mutalisks. My opponent is spreading creep a long way out on the map for Zerg versus Zerg here. So it makes sense to get some way out on the map so you can see incoming attacks. Once you get to a certain point, you're just making it easier for your opponent to run to your base, though. So my opponent here did make a Roach Warren, and they did end up making any Roaches? Doesn't look like it. Oh, they produced 4 to go with the 13 Mutalisks they're currently producing. But I moved out when the Roach speed finished. Morph a few Ravagers, because the plan is to go attack, and I just want the Ravagers to move things out of position as I come in. So as soon as the Ravagers finish, I go over here and actually make sure that my army attacks as a single army and not all in waves. So I'm going to target down the hatchery here. Can't hit the Mutalisks anyway. This will reduce what my opponent is able to produce. Then I have still this large number of Roaches, so I go over and try to get on top of more production. And these defensive structures that they built, there's just too many Roaches here for these to actually be that effective anyway. I think I end up going over here near the hatchery, which is maybe not the best plan. It might have been better to try to target down the evolution chamber. I could tell that it was researching some upgrade there. At some point I decide I have lost too many Roaches and end up backing off. But during the time that my opponent was fighting this with the Mutalisks, I was able to make multiple Spore Crawlers and to start the Hydralisk den, which means in a second here I will have Hydralisk. My opponent has to keep on top of the Roaches, because if they don't keep on top of the Roaches with the Mutalisks, they will end up losing many of their structures, tech structures, hatcheries, so they have less production, everything. So they have to actually clean up all of the Roaches. I even sent some reinforcing Roaches there just to force my opponent to stay at home even longer. which means that I have time to prepare the defenses. You can see I'm producing Hydralisks. I almost have +2 attack finished, which is going to help them deal damage faster. You want to get armor against Mutalisks for your ground units, well, for all your units, but you want the armor because Mutalisks have this bouncing attack that deals damage with each attack, and each bounce will get its damage reduced by the armor. So see over here, I've now got extra queens, I've got Spore Crawler, I have all these Hydralisks, so now the Mutalisks can't effectively attack in because I kept my opponent busy long enough on their side of the map that I was able to get at proper defenses to what they were doing. I do start up just a few more spores to make it harder to get into my base for Mutalisks. I have the muscular augments researching for the Hydralisks. It gives them additional speed and additional range on their attack when it finishes, but I think that my opponent should not be able to produce enough to keep up with me because I destroyed their hatchery earlier. So once I have a critical mass of Hydralisks, I start moving out, having made some extra anti-air defenses at home. So I have extra queens, I have spore crawlers in some different places. Should really maybe have queued up another couple of queens to be just totally safe. If I get over here, I see they're long distance mining still with these drones. Just come in here with a large force that my opponent can't really counter because they have been having a whole hatchery less than I have for some time now. So they weren't able to produce as many units, and I have the proper units to take out their Mutalisks. So my opponent says GG and leaves the game.